Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on these videos. Really helps this channel a lot. And you can always check out the other playlist for all the Wizard golf lessons, clicking in the icon here or in the link in the description. So last week we covered how we can use the bounce to adjust our pitches and how the different shots take off using the bounce. So today we're going to go over how changing the angle of attack can affect the golf ball, and I'll show you various shots and all of my arsenal that I have in pitches, my basic foundation of shots that I use around the green. Keep in mind that all of the shots that I'm hitting, I'm using a 55-degree sand wedge with 8 degrees of bounce. One of the other things that we can change about our pitching swing is the angle of attack on the ball. We can choose to have a very steep angle of attack, and by steep angle of attack I mean that the club is entering very vertically like this towards the ball, or we can have a shallow angle of attack where the club is entering sweeping more. So we can have a very steep angle of attack, which would look like this, or a very shallow angle of attack, which looks like this. Changing your angle of attack will change how the ball takes off of the club face. Generally speaking, a steep angle of attack is going to produce a lower ball flight with higher backspin. A shallower angle of attack is going to produce a higher ball flight with normal spin. If you want to spin the ball like you see on TV and the ball takes one hop and stops, essentially you have to catch the golf ball like this, where you're spinning it and there's not much of this going on, but where the angle of the club face entering the ball is similar to the angle of the club face itself. Think about hitting a ping pong ball with backspin. If you want to hit a ping pong ball with backspin, you cannot hit it like this. That would just be a straight shot or a topspin shot, hitting it like that. If you want to spin the ball, you have to cut it. You have to slice it like this so that the paddle is hitting the ball like this, causing it to go up and spin up the club face, grabbing the grooves, imparting backspin. So if you want to hit a ball with maximum backspin, consider the club as like a paddle. You would want to enter like this so that the ball rolls up the face like that and produces a lot of backspin. If you were just to hit it like this, then it's not going to have nearly as much because you're entering more shallow and it's going to hit the ball as opposed to making it grab the face and go up the face. So if you want to have a lot of backspin on your shots, you would want to have a very steep angle of attack. The downside of this is that with a very steep angle of attack, you diminish the place where the club hits the ground. You diminish your impact zone. If I have a very steep angle of attack, there's only just a small area where the club is coming down and then going back up. So it's more V-shaped. Of course, it's not a V-shape, but the angle of attack is very steep, so I have to be very precise with where the club is going to hit the ball. As opposed, if I have a very shallow angle of attack, my divot will be very long and the club will hug the ground for a very long period, for a very long distance. If you look here, if I move the club shallowly, you can see that the club is very close to the ground, almost 8 or 9 inches, maybe close to a foot, where it's very low to the ground. Meaning I can hit the ball anywhere within there and the club will be low enough to hit under the ball. As opposed, if I have a very sharp angle of attack, then there's only a very small distance where I have to hit the ball, a very small position where the club is coming down before it starts going back up. So a steeper angle of attack is going to make it harder for you to hit the ball because you decrease the area through which you can hit the ball. A shallower angle of attack is going to allow you a greater leeway or position where you can hit the ball. So here I'm going to show you a steep angle of attack. Now, granted, this is not a shot that I would hit on this lie because it's wet and because it's a low percentage, and I can do a lot better with a different type of shot. Again, I'm going to show you what that would look like. To have a steep angle of attack, I come straight up and allow the club to come off the ground almost vertically. So I come down through the ball like so, and you'll see when I hit this ball, it's going to take off quite low. See how it dug into the ground there? Let's see if I can hit it and not hit it too hard. That ball is going to have a lot of backspin, and it doesn't quite have as much as I want because the club is not sliding all the way under the ball. It's getting caught into the grass and then going. If I want to have a steep angle of attack and still get it to go and bounce, I can also use the bounce and have a steep angle of attack. And now I've opened the club face up, and this gives me where I can swing a little bit shallower and still kind of hit down in it with the same angle as the club face. So we'll try that now. Having the club face open, I have the ball in the back of my stance because I want to hit down on it. And you see, now I can get through it a little bit, and the ball comes out kind of low. Even though I have the club face open, because I'm hitting down on it, the ball will still come out relatively low. And of course, these are range balls, so they're hard. They're not intended to spin. But that is the technique used to hit a high spinning shot, is to come in steeply and just grab the ball first and then go down through the ball, causing it to spin a lot. It's a very low percentage shot. You have to catch it just right. If you catch it a little bit thin, a little bit fat, oftentimes the results will be disastrous or very far from what you want because the room for margin for error is very low. This is the reason I don't try to hit this shot unless it's the only one available to me, because even for me, as a skilled golfer, it's still a very low percentage shot to hit. I can choose another option that's going to give me better results much more often. I just wanted to go over the technique so you can practice this, so you can add it to your arsenal. So we've gone over a steep angle of attack. Now I'm going to hit some for you with a shallow angle of attack. A shallower angle of attack, which gives me a lot more leeway to hit the ball better. This is typically how I hit the shots. In this case, when I take the club back, I make sure to take it back low and away and come back through low. And you'll see the difference here. With a shallow angle of attack, I can hit the balls like this. See, I hit that one a little bit fat behind the ball, but it doesn't matter because I wasn't hitting down on it. I was so shallow that the club hit the ground and still bounced up. Even though I have the club face square to the target, I have the shaft relatively vertical. I'm not using the leading edge so much by having too much forward shaft lean. The shaft is relatively vertical. I mean, it's not vertical, but it's just in front. You really don't ever want to have your hands behind the club head because then the club head will be traveling upwards. We really do want the club head traveling downwards somewhat. So my hands here are just a little bit in front of the club head, as you can see. I'll show you that again, a shallow angle of attack. See, those are very nice, easy shots. Again, I'm trying to use a pitch swing here, and my pitch swing, this is really not far enough for me to use my full pitch swing. I would really chip it from here and not use any wrist hinge. Wrist hinge does give me a lot of power. My smallest pitch swing is going to be here, so I'm having a hard time keeping this close to the hole. That's why you see all the balls going far. I'll show you again, a shallow angle of attack. See, that lobs up nice and high. It's going to land relatively soft. When I need the ball to stop quickly, I typically try not to use the backspin shot because the backspin shot is going to come off low and it's going to skip off the ground, and then you use the backspin to try to stop on the second or third hop. It's a very low percentage shot. When I need the ball to stop quickly, I typically use height instead of backspin. Backspin is going to be a result of hitting a shot well. All the balls are going to have backspin, but typically I use height to try to stop the ball quickly. So if I need the ball to stop fast, I put it up into the air so that the angle of descent of the golf ball is very steep, where it's not hitting the ground like this. If I were to try to hit a spinning shot and it doesn't have a lot of backspin and it hits the ground at this angle, it's just going to go way past the hole. I have a better chance of getting it close to the hole if I just use loft to my advantage and try to get it up into the air and then go down. But remember, I don't use that shot unless I have to, unless it's my only option. Here I'm going to show you the same shot with a shallow swing with an open club face, using more bounce. See how high I can get that ball and soft? That's the kind of shot I would use if I need it to stop quickly. This is with my sand wedge, not even my 60 degree. I can run it just up under the ball, get very high loft on it. That ball lands very softly. That's going to be much higher percentage for me than trying to hit either spinning shot where I'm hitting it on a descending, on a very sharp angle of attack. And because I'm swinging shallowly, the space in which I have to hit the golf ball is very large. I don't have to be that exact. There's room for error. And this creates more consistency. That's not even my flop shot. It's something similar to a flop shot, but you see that I can just almost pick it clean off of this grass and it goes high and lands soft. So as you saw me making those swings there, the ones that I hit better were the ones in which I had less wrist hinge. The less wrist hinge you use is going to create better shots. Wrist hinge does give us some more power, but it also provides more inconsistency, a place for errors to happen as this is going on, as opposed to doing this. So when I go back and the club face is floating or moving back, when the inertia is taking it back, I limit the amount of hinge with this hand. It catches on my hook in my right hand, and I limit the amount of hinge and then return that to the ball. The more hinge I have, the less consistent I can be on the strikes. Of course, the more power I'm going to have, but it's not going to be as consistent for me. In other words, I use just enough hinge to get the power desired to get the shot that I want, where I'm not completely stiff-armed and chipping it. I will use, if my chip swing looks like this, then my pitch swing might look like this, where it's just a little bit. It's not like I'm trying to get maximum hinge on it. So experiment with the amount of hinge that you use and find that sweet spot for yourself. I've gone over a couple of high shots for you. Now I'm going to go over some low shots with you. Maybe I want the ball to come out a little lower, to roll more. We already know that a steep angle of attack is going to produce a low shot, but I may want to have a low shot without getting too steep. In order to produce a low shot, we have to keep the club face a little bit closed and the hands moving forward. In other words, not allowing the club to release too much under the ball. If the club releases under the ball, then we've maximized the loft of the club, as you saw the shots that went very high. In this case, when I need to pitch it and keep the ball low, I will keep the club face behind me very much and hit the ball like this, so that I keep the loft minimized. I can still have a relatively shallow angle of attack and move forward through it like that to get the ball to go low. So here I'll show you a low shot. I do play the ball in the back of my stance where I have quite a bit of shaft lean. And then I can send the ball quite low like this. I'll show you that again. Oh, hit the pin. All right. And you see that I don't have to have that steep of an angle of attack to hit it low. I can have a relatively shallow angle of attack, and it's a kind of like a combination of a pitch and a chip swing. I have a chip follow through, but I have a pitch backswing where it does hinge some. So I have the energy of the club. So I let it hinge and then come through like this, like raking it or dragging it through the ball is what it feels like to me. Keeping my hands in front of the ball, and I can send the ball low. So that's going to be your low shot. Now finally here we're going to talk about some adverse lies, because you're likely going to find yourself in adverse lies, quite often, especially if you're not hitting it in the fairway and around the green. Oftentimes the grass around the green is quite thick, rough, so you want to know how to navigate rough lies. When the ball is in the rough, I don't really have a lot of rough here to show you. I'll try to show you up here though. the roughest that I have. When the ball is in the rough, then the grass is going to be longer and it will be very difficult to hit the golf ball without there getting grass in between the golf ball. When you're hitting out of the rough, there's definitely going to be some grass in between the club face and the golf ball at impact. When this happens, this is going to diminish the amount of backspin and the contact quality. So this is where you typically get what they call flyer lies. The ball will come out kind of knuckled with low backspin. It's typically going to roll more than a ball would that you hit off the fairway. And you will need slightly more power if the grass is very thick, because it may grab the club face as it goes through there and slow it down. These are things you have to keep into consideration as you're hitting out of rough type lies. Another common lie that you get is where the ball is sitting down. Let's say the ball is sitting down in a hole. Like, I'm just going to put it in this divot right here. If the ball is sitting down in a divot like this, I can no longer catch the bottom of the golf ball very well at all. This is going to be a very challenging lie to hit. If the ball is sitting down in a hole, this is when you typically have to have a steep angle of attack. A shallow angle of attack is not going to work here because the ground behind the ball is higher than the ball. So if you hit the ground behind the ball, it's going to bounce, the club will bounce up and then hit the center of the golf ball and you'll scull it. We really want to hit the golf ball first. In order to do that, when I have a ball in a hole like this, I will place it well in the back of my stance to make sure that I'm going to hit it on a descending blow and hit the ball first. I will put it in the back of my stance and I will close the club face or have it square to the target. Now, by closed, I mean square to the target. Very rarely do I hit pitches with the club face closed. That's never really the case. I either have the club face square to the target or slightly open. In this case, I want it square to the target because I do not want the bounce to activate. I need to hit this one down. Already in this kind of a situation, you can't be thinking, I want to get this close. When I have a situation like this where the lie is compromised, I'm thinking, get it on the green anywhere. Anywhere on the green is going to be acceptable. It doesn't matter how it gets out of there. Just get it out of this hole and somewhere onto the green or very close to the green. So in this case, it's in this hole. I'm going to play it back in my stance, have the club face square to the target, and hit down on the ball like so. Steep angle of attack to try to catch the ball first, and I'm just going to try to bump it up there. I'm assuming that this is going to come out with low spin and run, so I just try to bump it into this hill and let it go towards the target. You see that came out very nicely. I hit the ball well. I hit the ball first, even though it was in the hole. I'll show you that again in this other divot. So here it's in this steep divot. Here I have a little bit of room behind it. Nevertheless, the ball is still sitting down in this hole. I need to get it out, so I'm going to play it in the back of my stance, hit down on it, and get the ball out of there. So if your ball is sitting down in a lie and you're pitching it, you need to get it out. Typically, play the ball in the back of your stance to ensure that you're going to hit down on it. Negate the bounce, close the club face square to the target, and hit down and try to catch the ball first. This is why we play it in the back of the stance, and just get it out of there. Also, when you're having it in the back of the stance, it's in the hole, you have the club face square to the target, ball's in the back of your stance, and you're hitting down on it, keep the hands in front. We can't get it out of the hole by trying to scoop it out. This will never work. So make sure that as you go down and attack the ball, you keep the hands moving forward ahead of the club face, making that club face travel downward into the ball. All right, I'm going to leave you showing my swings for one of every shot, kind of the different shots that I have with a pitch so you can kind of see them all. Starting with my standard pitch, my normal pitch shot. That would be normal, standard, face square. Here's going to be the same thing, but with the ball in the back of the stance, so it'll be a little bit lower trajectory. Here's going to be the same thing in the front of my stance with a little bit higher trajectory. Those are my three basic chip shots when I need standard, high, low trajectory. Nothing fancy happening with my angle of attack, just a baseline. I can also have those same 3 positions with the club face open. So that would be 6 different positions. These are things you want to practice for yourself to determine how the club face comes out like that. Here's one in the middle of my stance, my normal shot with the face open. Notice how much softer the ball comes out. Because I have the club face open, a lot of that energy goes up instead of forwards. Here's one in the back of my stance here. Still goes high. Here's one in the front of my stance with that same position with the face open. Very high, very soft. You see it doesn't roll out that much. Here's going to be my spinning shot. Steep angle of attack. Now, of course, I try to have as shallow an angle of attack as possible because that maximizes my room for error. And those there are my basic arsenal of different pitch shots that I have. So when I'm in situations on the course, I can choose from those variations and see which one is likely going to give me the best result. Really hope this is going to help your game. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out 2 of my other videos here, and you can always subscribe here. That's going to do it for pitching, for the short pitches anyway. Now we're going to pick it up next time with some longer pitches or short approach shots. See you next time.